The Trump administration is moving to clamp down on legal immigration, announcing a new public charge rule, which would make it more difficult for people who rely on government assistance. We're talking about things like Medicaid, subsidized housing, food stamps, more difficult for those folks to get a green card.
All right, here to discuss now, Andrew Gillum, former mayor of Tallahassee and a CNN political commentator, Angela Rye, CNN political commentator, April Ryan, CNN political analyst, and Bakari Sellers, CNN commentator, who has also endorsed Senator Kamala Harris for president, in case that comes up. Mayor Gillum, I want to start with you here. These new legal immigration rules. This is for people who are here in the United States legally and applying for a green card to stay and work legally. A whole bunch of new criteria which will make it harder, including, if they've used public benefits, Medicaid before, other forms of public benefits, food stamps, housing vouchers. Also will take into account their age, wealth, education, and English language skills. What do you see going on here?
I mean, I come from a pretty culturally diverse state, the state of Florida, third biggest in the country. I'm very, very concerned about the implications of what this administration is attempting. So a couple of things. One, the president appears to be very, very clear about the instruments at his disposal to create the kind of America that he wants. He's already told us the countries that he determines to be S-hole countries, which all happen to be countries, frankly, where the majority is people that are black and brown. We saw them attempt to use the census and the census count as an instrument for creating, again, I think, a whiter America. And I don't say that to be toxic in any way or sensational, but this president has said that he doesn't value people of color. He doesn't value folks who come from poorer places. These are the people who, part of the founding and the foundation of this country, were folks who came here from quite frankly, rough circumstances and came to this country, built this country, saying that Angela is used to using, and now we're trying to turn our backs on them. I think it's an embarrassment, but I think it also shows this administration is intent on creating, I think, a whiter and America.
And I think the number that people point to as 2042, when for the first time, white individuals in this country will not be a majority of individuals in this country. Stephen Miller has pointed to that number before, and I think everybody would recognize this has Stephen Miller's fingerprints all
Most
over
definitely.
it. And to Andrew's point, I think what you're attempting to see is the curbing of the browning of America, and people are afraid of diversity. And what Donald Trump has played into perfectly, which is why he's in the White House, is that there is this view by a large group of individuals that somehow people will replace them.
But, try as they might, they can't make America white. That's the bottom line. And you're right. Stephen Miller, the president's immigration guru, is behind this 100%. And I never thought I'd say this, but going back to Omarosa's book, Unhinged, this is that racist...
Lord, I didn't know you would go there either.
Okay.
Move to strike.
Anyway, going back. Let me take it back. Okay, but
Omarosa is the most surprised person this morning.
anyway, moving on.
Maybe you should have said that in her intro, because I don't know. You just threw the whole panel, April.
No, but she said that Stephen Miller was promoting these racist policies, and that is where we are.
She worked there.
Yes, she did, and she was complicit. But moving on. But now what's next? So the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus, along with the Congressional Asian Pacific Caucus are trying to figure out what they're going to do. They're looking at all the legalities of what they can take and go after this. They're trying to get the numbers. They're pressing this White House about the numbers as to what's going on and what they can do.
Here's the thing. And as much as I want to put all of this at Stephen Miller's feet, we have to put this on the president. Sure. The bottom line is, even before your girl was in the White House, he announced...
Not my girl anymore, but go
ahead. Whatever. he started his campaign, we've said this a gazillion times on air and in speeches and everywhere else, calling Mexicans drug dealers and rapists. We knew what it was from the very beginning. He knew what he was tapping into from the very beginning. He knew what he was tapping into when he was questioning Barack Obama's citizenship. This has never been a secret. People coming out as surprised right now, I just want to shake somebody, because I'm like, how are you surprised? It's always been this. I remember being on CNN for the first time and saying that Donald Trump was racist and being like, oh, we can't really say that. It's like, yes, we can. How many more facts do we need? What else do we need to see? Please help me, because my voice is gone.
Yeah,
Please.
but it's okay. It still sounds soothing at 6 a.m. in the morning.
don't know about that.
But I think what people don't realize, and there's a direct correlation between his policies and what's going on in the United States Census. I mean, the census, especially for those of us in the South, where you are having an opportunity to win some of these seats, when you go through that Bible Belt, when you go through the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Mississippis, the South Carolinas, you're going to have people afraid to be counted. I mean, this is a campaign of
And
fear.
that's not anything new either.
But there's always been an undercount in this nation. People have always been afraid to come out,
Yes.
particularly immigrants. And I'm going to say this, Joaquin Castro, the head of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, said to me, he said, look, this is not about legal versus illegal. This is about discrimination now.
Yes.
You
Well,
were
even
looking
in
at some
terms of-
numbers here, right?
Right. So one of the things I was looking into this morning, because this is dealing with legal immigration, right? And
Legal.
so you see in a lot of these rights that have been done in the last, 12 to 18 hours, people are looking at the direct impact. And the concern is that more people will not go for the services that they need and that they may need temporarily. A perfect example of this to me is WIC. So about half of the babies born in this country,
Women, infants, and
right?
children, yes.
Right, exactly, rely on some sort of WIC assistance, right? Maybe it's formula, maybe it's food staples just to get them through. In a Politico piece from earlier this year, about 6 months ago, nearly 2/3 of WIC providers from 18 different states, they went through them all, reported they've noticed a difference in immigrant WIC access in the wake of the news about potential changes to the public charge rules. That came from a March survey of the National WIC Association. Politico went through those numbers. They put this out in September. So they were already seeing an impact of people afraid to go to WIC, is essentially what they were saying, because they were concerned of the blowback, even though they were here legally.
Yeah, not surprising. I mean, the president we saw what he did in Mississippi. He's literally terrorizing communities, and I don't use that word lightly. If our children go to school with the expectation that they come home and their parents are going to be there, and this president are forcing these folks to go in and pre-register so that they can determine whether or not everyone has appropriate documentation, only so that they could then go and directly go after those families, those individuals when their kids are away at school and kids are literally orphaned during the day. And now we've got the same administration using the instrumentalities of power, the instruments of government to prosecute a political
And more
agenda.
people are going to go into the shadows because of this, and it's going to affect the economy. This is not just about WIC, it's about housing vouchers and so much more. You're going to have people afraid to go out, and there's going to be more poverty. This is going to directly affect this economy that the president says is so overwhelmingly great.
The president swears that he wants people to come here legally. Listen.
Yeah, he swears, yeah.
Listen, don't listen to that line.
I want people to come in, but they have to come in legally. They have to come in legally. We need people to come into our country, but they have to do it through the system. They have to do it legally. We want people to come in through a legal process. I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally.
Angela?
He has a preferred group that he caters to. He does want people to come in legally if they're rich and white. He's fine with that group of immigrants. When we're talking about health care, he wants that available to the privileged few. When we're talking about voting, he wants that available to the privileged few.
White few.
Of course. I mean, but I'm just saying there's a consistent pattern here, and there's no secret. We don't have to pretend like we don't know exactly what this is.
Even more so, I think that we also have to take this time to point out the president's hypocrisy. Somebody who has made their career on being a businessman and someone who himself has their own problems with immigration or running afoul of immigration laws. I think that it's somewhat rich for him to be using undocumented workers throughout Mar-a-Lago and all of his other enterprises, be able to evade or avoid, let me not say evade, but avoid any consequences.
Evade too, we haven't seen the tax returns.
So, to any consequences for that. And now he wants to persecute people. But again, I think that we all agree. I mean, this is a campaign of pure terror. This is a campaign of pure fear. This isn't what, and I hate to go back to this because it doesn't, I mean, sometimes it rings hollow now because Donald Trump is the president, but we've all been raised to believe that this is not what our country was built upon, that we're better than this.
That is not true.
And it definitely ain't true now. I mean, I think that when you talk about young people, even in El Paso, we did a story that people were afraid to go and identify the people.
When were we? Well, let me say, I don't know who we is. When was this country better?
What we
than
were
this?
taught.
Yes, that's what I was saying.
I just said that's what we were taught.
Well, I agree with that part.
So
I agree
can
with that part.
give people something aspirational in the morning before they go to
Yes,
work?
that we could be better than this, but we never have been.
You talk about what a campaign is. This is a campaign of pure racism, and the NAACP defines racism as power and prejudice, the intersection of power and prejudice.
Well,
That's it.
better have a citation.
Could I say not just racism, but also the persecution of poverty. So the one thing that is extremely clear about this administration is they want to correlate folks who need assistance as being lazy, not working, not achieving for the American dream. And the truth is that even working people are on these assistance programs. In fact, the revision in the law under the Clinton administration required folks to be working, folks who are in pursuit of a job in order to get access to these poverty programs.
All right, we're going to continue this discussion in just a moment.
Back with us now, Andrew Gillum, Angela Rye, April Ryan, and Bakari Sellers.
Who has endorsed Kamala Harris?
Who has
In case it comes
Thank
out.
you.
Conflict.
Just in case. I don't think she was in the montage, so we're good at the moment.
I'm just used to saying it.
At the moment.
At the moment.
Somebody
We like to cover.
That's why he said that.
April, I'm going to let you tackle this one first, since you're a member of the press corps, right? It is interesting to see this shift, and it is a little bit of a Donald Trump playbook.
Well, you know, it's unfortunate. We've seen a shift totally in how we cover politics, how politicians now offer their spin or their way of speaking. But I'm going to say this, you know, people are looking, the majority of people are sick of Donald Trump. As the president is watching us this morning to see what we're going to say, they're sick of Donald Trump, and they don't want candidates being Donald Trump. But at the same time, you know, it is a good point because it's a real point.
Yes.
Yes, pat myself on the back.
I like that ounce of
Go,
humility.
April.
No, but
Thank
we
you,
are now in the element of the clap back. We're now in the element of I can hit you before you hit me. And it's unfortunate. But I'm going to say this when it comes to what we're seeing. I'd rather, with Simone and what she was saying about Joe Biden, I'd rather have a president who would have a gaffe than would lie to me. So we're now in that element of lies versus gaffes versus the clap back versus I'm going to stab you before you stab me. This is ridiculous. It's about people, it's about politics, and it's about humanity. And we've got to get off of that reality show mentality.
This also ain't new for Bernie Sanders. Now, I have a problem with this part of his shtick, but this isn't new for him. I can see if this was something where he just found this new, I'm a rail against the press and the media in 2000, in my run for president in 2020. But he's been doing this for a very long period of time. One thing we can say about Bernie Sanders that is impressive about him is that he has been very, very consistent his entire political career. I mean, this is the same Bernie Sanders. I just fundamentally have a problem with attempting to erode trust in our establishments, because I think that's what Donald Trump did very well. And with that statement that Bernie Sanders made, literally, we have to come back and say, without fact, he cast aspersions, somehow looping his bad media press to Jeff Bezos owning the Washington.
Anyone who works for the Washington Post will tell you it's Bezos.
I don't have billions either. So
I know. But anyone who works for the Post will tell you.
I'm not going to rail against the Post.
He has nothing to do with the coverage. Most of the people who work at the Post say they've never even heard his name mentioned anywhere near an article.
They're good reporters at the Washington Post. I work with many of them.
I just wanted to just try to change the perspective a little bit. I think that it is fair to criticize press coverage that you don't like. The leaps that Bernie Sanders was trying to make in connecting the dots there were a little
far-reaching.
Yes, but I guess that the thing that I want to say in Simone's defense, who is an alum of this network and a good
And our
sister friend,
yes.
Oh, I love Simone.
is that I think that it's more than fair to say I don't appreciate this coverage and it's not in alignment with what we heard on the ground. I think that's very fair. As someone who, you know, was the executive director to the Congressional Black Caucus, I know what it's like when there are reporters who their beat is trying to beat down your members or beating down your candidates. That's frustrating.
But
going after the press
what's wrong
is
with
wrong.
actually telling voters and viewers or showing them what a candidate says? It's not like we made up what Joe Biden said.
no. But I don't take
Having
issue with
just-
that part. Go
having
ahead.
just come out of a statewide election.
Yeah, talk
where,
to us,
No,
Governor.
I mean, in the sense that it was extremely difficult when you had, you had an experience on the ground with voters every single day. And I think that was part of the shock of my winning the primary, because the press was covering something different than what was actually happening on the ground
They
with
covered the
everyday.
white
some of
candidates
that
and not the black man who came up
Well,
and shot up.
that may be the case, but
negatively, too.
the point being, and I'm sensitive to this for a lot of reasons. These folks are out there busting it every single day, trying to give their very, very best in earning their way to the White House. And the truth is that Donald Trump can send out a tweet and change the news cycle for everybody. So that many times these folks feel that their work is largely in vain. And what I think we have to do is demonstrate a little bit of discipline around what are we going to chase. I was particularly proud of CNN this weekend not chasing this whole narrative of the Clintons that was pushed out by Trump, and basically saying we're gonna draw a line in the sand here, that we're not going to chase every single conspiracy theory just because this president decides that he wants to lob something so we would be distracted from the damage that he's causing every single day as he
But
serves
it's not
as president.
appropriate for these candidates nor the president to go after the press. There's something called freedom of the press. Wait a minute, Angela, we're fourth estate. We were put in place by the founding fathers when all else failed, when Washington fails, and it's failing now.
Sure.
When checks and balances are not there, we're supposed to put in front of the American public
But did
what's
you
going
hear
on.
me?
No. But you said you can criticize the press. Let me say this. Be very careful about doing that, because what you do when you start criticizing the press, we all get things wrong, but we get it right most of the time.
No,
but when
no.
you criticize the
No.
press, you start eroding the
April.
former
But this is-
democracy
That's
and
not
trust.
But this is so there's a
Don't
difference.
be Donald Trump,
There's
please.
a
We're not.
difference.
Come on,
There's a
April. There is
difference.
a space between
I'm very
where Donald
sensitive
Trump
about
is.
that
No, but
because
we're
the
sensitive
press has
about
been
it
under
too.
attack.
I'm screaming.
But, no, because I'm saying that, yes, like you should not, there's under no circumstance should Donald Trump tell you to set up a meeting with the CBC, or should he target you enough to where you are personally subject to any harm. You know I haven't played about that with you.
Right.
There is a very big
You've
difference.
been with me, and I love that.
There's a very big difference in what Simone was saying about the types of coverage. Is a very big difference in me criticizing the types of coverage that Andrew was getting when he was running for governor.
There's hit coverage, but there's also mainstream coverage
and I
that
want
is
you to
real.
acknowledge the
No, I
difference.
do.
Okay, that's
And
all I'm saying.
some of that is at
That's
the
all
White
I'm saying.
House.
Just chime
That's all
in
I'm
briefly.
saying.
But they're
One of the-
mainstream that are
one
being
of the-
lumped into
The
that.
mainstream can be hit pieces
But one
too.
of the
Go,
things that
Bakari, I'm
Simone
sorry.
was highlighting, which I agree with, which is where her spin fell dead on. Simone spun that perfectly in one sense, is that we have to start highlighting and uplifting a lot of our local newspapers. And what Simone was simply saying is that the press coverage out of Iowa was vastly different than the press coverage she saw nationally, for better or worse. And what she's saying is the Des Moines Register and Iowa Starting Line, et cetera, may have gotten some stories right where others did not.
I do want to bring up one thing, because you guys have been piling on President Trump quite a bit. And I think there's an opportunity.
I don't know every time.
I think there's an opportunity for you to give praise to him, which is his campaign website is gone after these plastic straws. And I know this sounds trite, but the Washington Post,
Somebody come get me off this set.
the Washington Post
It's gonna be good.
has
Just
this
stay.
whole
Just stay.
article about the cultural touchstones. Here are some plastic straws here. You know, it goes
Throw
back,
'em,
They're
April.
going in the trash.
it goes back to Sarah. It goes back to Sarah Palin
guys,
drinking
we'll
the
pick
big
'em up.
I know,
gulp
we'll pick 'em
and
up.
other things. Is this something that's smart? Is the Trump campaign?
They don't believe in global warming, but they want to stop straws. What is that about? Come on. If you're going to do it, go all the way.
What is this campaign doing? I don't even follow it.
It's
But why
raising
does
money.
John want us to give him some kudos for this?
Do you like paper straws or plastic straws?
I don't mind paper straws,
can't
but I
tell you
prefer the biodegradable plastic ones. I get frustrated. I'm putting my turmeric ginger latte and it kind of like deforms a little bit.
Listen, this is first world conversation right here.
Plastic
Clearly, we're not going to give the.
Are you
the president
are you
gets-
calling me an elitist?
I'm not calling you a liberal elite. I'm simply
Oh,
saying.
and